Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Plenty to talk about today. Happy Friday. Unfortunately, not Front Office Friday live. Traveling right now and just don't have the upload speeds in order to send out a strong enough signal to go live. That's why I haven't been on the Lakers Nation live show either. So, fortunately, you have to get the pre-recorded version of the show, but that'll have to make do for this week. Next week, we can get back to our Front Office Friday live shows. But Keith, the NBA Finals have started up, so we've got plenty to dig into there. And I guess that's where we should just start.
I want to, sorry to interrupt you. I want to
Yeah.
go one thing though. We're not doing live today, but we're going to have extra live shows this month and into next month because we'll have the draft show. I can guarantee, guys, we'll probably be going live every night of the first few nights of free agency, breaking everything down. We like to do that. That's late night for our East Coast friends, a little earlier in the day for our West Coast friends. But so you're still going to get plenty of chances to interact with us live and all that. So just hang with us for this 1 week, and we apologize, but we'll get back to it.
Absolutely. Good point there. That we are going to have more live shows. I can't wait till and it's not that far away. Our live draft show.
Yeah,
live
draft show's going to be less than 3 weeks. Yeah. 20 days or 20 days from today, which is crazy. Like that's just, I don't know. I plowed through. I did, it was either 8 or 9 full scouts yesterday of guys where I watched games and clips and took a ton of notes on different players and stuff. And I've still got, I went back and added like 4 more guys. So I'm back up to like 44 players that I still want to try to spend at least, an hour or 2 on if I can, but it's getting tight. Windows are getting a little bit tight here.
I feel like I am way behind on a school project, and that due date is coming up, and last minute panic is going to inspire me shortly.
But Trevor, one time you'll appreciate this as a former teacher. One time, I asked my mom on the morning of a project being due if we could go buy a poster board. And she was ready to kill me. Like she literally was ready to kill me. But I did have I had all the stuff ready. I just needed to mount it on a poster board. And she's like, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, I don't know, I forgot. And she's like, forgot, when did you find out? And then she saw like the paper about the project, and I had known like for like a month. So yeah, that did not go well.
No, I did that once or twice myself, but I'm going to hopefully on the plane really dig into some of our draft prospects here and all that kind of stuff and be ready for draft night. All right, let's talk a little bit about game 1. The Nuggets take game 1. And so much for rust. They were able to cruise. Essentially, it didn't look like this Nuggets team. What's impressed me the most. This wasn't like a particularly high scoring game or anything, but what's impressed me the most is they've won the big moments. Like every time it felt like Miami was about to make a push, Denver would hit a couple of shots and kind of re-secure the lead and put a stop to that. And they just continue to do that. They did that against the Lakers. They've been doing it all postseason, and now they did it against Miami. And I saw a lot of people that were saying this was Miami's best chance to get a win, right? Denver's rusty. They've been off for a week and a half. Miami, but in my mind, Miami's got to be a little bit tired from having played so recently. So I don't know if that's actually true. I do think Miami probably needs to win one of the first 2, which means now they've got to win game 2 if they're going to have a chance here. I think if Denver wins game 2, Miami's in some big trouble.
Yeah, it's you're in a better place if you're the Heat if you go down 0-2 just because you're going home, right? That's always not the end of the world. But sure, yeah, your goal is always get one of those first 2 on the road. I think this is one where both teams will come away feeling like they could have played better. I know there's been some stuff made this morning of the free throw discrepancy. Miami only took 2 free throws all game, and Denver took 20. It was an extremely fast game. This game was over by 10:45 East Coast time. Because there were very few fouls. Denver committed 8 fouls all game, and Miami only had 15. So, very low foul game. And I thought Jimmy Butler put it well when asked about the free throws. He's like, we took way too many jump shots. He's like, we weren't aggressive going to the basket. We really settled for a lot of jump shots. And even on the Denver side, some of that takes, you have to have a little bit of context. Yes, they took 20 free throws. That's not even a lot, by the way, but 12 of them were Nikola Jokic, and they were fouling him repeatedly inside. Often when it was like either he got somebody else on a switch or he had beaten Bam and there was nobody else left. So, Max Strus 0 for 10 and 0 for 9 from 3.
Oof,
Caleb Martin
brutal.
1 for 7. Celtics fans right now are like shaking their fists in anger, because
Where was
where
this
was
last game?
this? Yeah, exactly. Right. Where was this for 7 games against us? But right, it's Miami, I think, can feel like, hey, we'll shoot better. We'll be a little bit better. But I think Denver's gonna probably look at it and be like, yeah, we had some moments, sloppiness. It's not like they shot it great either. They were 8 for 27 from 3, so that's not very good for them considering where they've been at almost all playoffs. But Jokic, he's just unbelievable, man. 27, 10 and 14, just absolutely dominated the game. Didn't even take a shot for at least, I think it might have been the entire first quarter.
Yeah.
If not, it was most of it. And he just absolutely dominated. Like, it's like he's just unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, the attention to detail that you have to have defensively when you're playing Denver is just so high. There was one play where Miami was about to get on a run and it looked like things were going well. And then suddenly they just dropped the ball into Jokic. Jeff Green makes a back, Duncan Robinson turns his head for half a second and Jeff Green just makes a backdoor cut. He's got the ball. It's a layup. Boom. The Miami run is stopped. Yeah. And it's so simple, but part of it is I think Denver is just so good. They're making it look easy with the things that they're doing out there. So, and again, like you said, they played particularly that well. It's noticeable how easy things come to them on the offensive end.
And they just didn't have any answer early for those Aaron Gordon duck-ins either.
Yeah.
I mean, he just got rolling right from the beginning, and it was almost kind of the same thing. It was like a cross screen for him to duck into the post, dump it in, and then if Bam's pulled out away from the paint, they don't have any kind of interior defense at all, and that's going to be frustrating as well for the Heat. But if they shoot it a little bit better, maybe Tyler Hero plays in Game 2. Woj had that report. It sounds like he's getting close. That'd be big, even if he can only go 10, 15 minutes and give them 10 points. That's something. They need one other guy who can put the ball on the floor, create something, and put it in the hoop. So we'll see. But I still think this is going to be a good competitive series. I don't feel like it's over by any means.
No.
I've seen some proclaiming that. I still think Denver wins, but with that, I don't know that we ever go. What was your official pick?
I had Denver in 7, and that was my optimistic, hoping for the most basketball possible take. I think if I had to put money on it, I'd have Denver in 5 or 6. Sure. But Denver in 7 is what I'm hoping to see happen, and so that's what I'm putting out there as my official prediction, just to try to put it into the universe.
Shocking that you and I were on the same page for very similar reasons.
More basketball, please. More basketball, yes. And so we can just jump right from basketball, and then hey, it's the draft. Let's go.
Yeah, right into it.
Yeah. All right, let's talk. You mentioned your Celtics, and my Lakers frustrated. And finally, Denver's had a poor shooting game from 3, even though they shot well from the field. But you mentioned your Celtics being frustrated too, that suddenly Max Strus and Caleb Martin are missing shots, which they weren't doing against Boston. But there's been a lot of frustration from Celtics fans in general. And what tends to happen here is people get frustrated with the coach, right? That he tends to take a lot of flack just across the board in basketball. Joe Mazzulla, though, has gotten a lot of heat following the Celtics loss in Game 7. A lot of questions about his strategies. Is he really ready? Did he lose the locker room? All that sort of stuff. Well, Brad Stevens has come out and said Joe Mazzulla will be staying on as the Celtics head coach. Is that the correct decision, Keith?
I think so. It was two things. I was all the way up to they basically, by their own admission, quit in Game 3 against the Heat and got absolutely rocked. When that happened, there was a point where I said, if they just don't no-show for Game 4 and get swept in embarrassing fashion, he's probably getting fired, and it's probably the right decision. Fighting back to force a Game 7, and Game 7 didn't go well, but I don't know how much of that can be put on Mazzulla. That, to me, showed something, at least, right? Like, he at least was able to galvanize the locker room, and some people are going to fire back. It was all Al Horford and Grant Williams and, other players and those kind of things. And I'm sure it was a collective effort by all of them, right? You get down 0-3, you force a Game 7. It's not a win, but it's it's a minor accomplishment, I guess, is the best way to put that. But mostly with this is when they gave him the full-time job in February, and they moved on from Ime Udoka, and then he got an extension. That's why he's not going anywhere. They weren't going to pay him not to coach, and no one else was going to hire him as a head coach. So there wasn't going to be anything that went on to offset it either. This wasn't like a Monty Williams situation, right? So this is one where that's the bigger reason. But I think, the fact that they did fight back, they did force that game 7. I think you're probably going to see not only Joe Mazzulla back, I think there's a chance you're going to see the roster semi sort of run it back with a lot of the same main guys with some moves around the edges. That's not necessarily the approach I would take, but I think that's where this may be headed.
And some of that could be just managing the cap, right? In terms of just bringing back the roster. Things are going to get a little bit tight for some teams, and the Celtics are a team that are going to have to keep an eye on that moving forward here. But I do agree. I think that sometimes, just in general in fandom, it's easy to blame the coach, right? It's easy to look at things and say, and I'm not saying that Joe Mazzulla is blameless here, but it's just very easy to point the finger at the coach and say, oh my gosh, I don't like player X and he's on the floor. Well, that's the coach's decision. This is the coach's fault. Fire him. Get rid of this guy. And sometimes we can be a little too quick to pull the trigger on things like this, particularly with a first-year head coach. If you feel like it's similar in some ways to a player where it can be dangerous to totally write off a player too early. The same thing is true of a head coach. So again, I don't think that Mazzulla just didn't make mistakes, but I think that it's probably best to at least give him another season. And you believed in him for a reason when you made him the head coach. Trust that instinct for at least another season, and then go from there. Again, they did battle back. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like for most teams, that's a phenomenal season. Obviously, Boston had title aspirations, and rightfully so. But I think it's the correct decision to be patient here and at least see what Joe Mazzulla can do next season, and then go from there. Then maybe you reevaluate after that. But I think it's a bit too soon to just pull the plug, because you know what? The grass isn't always greener on the other side.
And that's the other thing too, right? It's always counter back with these things of, all right, well then who do you replace him with, right? And then I'm sure this will come to no small amount of amusement to you. People are like, why not Frank Vogel, right? Mm-hmm. Like he was a really good coach and all those kind of things. And I'm not against that, right? I wouldn't be against that at all. I think Frank Vogel is a very good coach.
Yep.
And I think he could do really good things with this team. I just it's just not the direction they're going to go right now. Now, one other piece of news with them, Brad Stevens did basically say, he didn't get deep into it, but said, yeah, we're going to have to add some coaches to the staff. It's important that we remember going into this season, obviously Ime Udoka suspended and then gone right on the eve of the season, but they also lost Will Hardy, who would have been the coach had he still been on the Celtics staff. Right. He went on. Then Mazzulla gets elevated. They don't replace him. So now you're down, it's effectively almost 2 coaches. Then Damon Stoudemire left in the regular season to take the Georgia Tech job. So now you're down your most experienced coach, and the only significant former player, Aaron Miles, is on the staff and did play in the NBA, but not very long. But Damon Stoudemire obviously was in the league forever.
Right.
So he leaves. So now you're left with just a very, inexperienced from a, NBA playing experience and just a very small coaching staff. And now news has come out that it sounds like their top remaining 3 assistant coaches are all going to head to Houston to work for Ime Udoka, because that's why they went to Boston in the first place, was to work for him. So it's basically Joe Mazzulla, and then there's other guys who will still be there, but they're a bunch of people nobody knows, right? They're the second row staffers, the video team, the player development type people. They'll still be around. So my guess is probably going to add at least one former head coach to the list. Steven Silas seems pretty high on the list. He's been around, family connections to the Celtics. Obviously, his dad was a longtime Celtics. So I think that's just going to be kind of where this all comes together. And I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Mazzulla is on a somewhat short leash next year. And there is all right, hey, if we're still seeing some of the same stuff that we saw in the second half of the regular season and in the playoffs, maybe then they look to make a little bit of a move. So, but for now, they're going to run it back with him. As for the roster, the other piece of news that was kind of came out mid-season, and this was a big thing in Celtics world, Payton Pritchard, mid-season to go all the way back, he wasn't playing, and he was asked about it. And he's like, yeah, I want to play. Like, and if it's not here, I'd rather go somewhere else. And it was a lot of people were like, man, what is this guy doing? Why is he firing off these shots at the team and stuff? And it's like, because he wants to play. Like, I don't, I am way more concerned if a player's like, it's fine that I don't play. Like,
right.
What do we want you on the team for? So that, he's just a young guy who was just trying to get his career established, had a rotation role, lost it because they brought in other guards and didn't get to play. And now, it's been rehashed that he would like a trade, from the Celtics. And I think that's pretty well known out there, at least in the NBA world, of, hey, if you're looking for a point guard or a backup point guard, he's somebody you can definitely consider. I think his future will be tied to if they make another move at the guard position or not. And I wrote about this. I think there's a chance maybe Malcolm Brogdon gets moved. We'll see what that looks like over the summertime. But if not, if they just roll back with most of the same guys, Payton Pritchard probably gets moved on from him. Probably moving it for like a late first rounder or something, basically equivalent to what he was drafted at. And just, you're kind of kicking the can down the road a little bit with that roster spot.
Right. Yeah. Wouldn't be a surprise, especially if a player wants out. And it's not like, it's a bigger deal if it's Jason Tatum who says I want to be traded or something. It's a lot easier to come up with a move for Payton Pritchard.
And his $4 million salary is not going to be a burden to anyone who would like to acquire him.
Exactly. All right, let's but unfortunately it's the off season and we're still dealing with injury news. Alexei Poku, which I always butcher his name, but Poku, right humerus fracture in an off-season workout. This guy could just stay healthy. It's unfortunate. Only had 34 games last year due to injuries, and now here he is with another one. I haven't seen how long this is going to keep him out. I mean, reevaluated.
Under said 4 to 6 weeks he'll be reevaluated.
But we know that means not back in 4 to not training again in 4 weeks. Like, again, it's the off season. It's June. There's plenty of time to recover before the regular season, but not ideal that his off-season workout program is now going to be suspended for however long it takes to heal from this injury.
Yeah, and like you said, coming off kind of a lost season, right? Only played the 34 games, as you said. And it is, this is all lost development time. You're talking now mid-July that he's kind of back to work. He wasn't going to play in Summer League anyway. He's a fourth-year guy. No. Now that's exceedingly rare when a player like that goes to Summer League. So that wasn't going to be a thing. But I don't know where he was as far as national team. Was he going to be a part of things? Was he going to be in camp for his national team or not? I don't know about that, but that's probably all out the window. So now we're talking, you're talking late July, early August before he really gets back to it. And this is a guy who still is trying to really find himself and establish. And why the injury, in-season injury, was so disappointing was he was finally kind of finding his footing in the NBA. He was shooting well. Now he's really playing some pretty good defense at times. I think the Thunder had kind of said, yeah, we're kind of done with messing around with you as a 4. Like, we're going to kind of, hey, you'll get bullied some inside, but we're going to let you play the 5 and use your skills that way. And he was really starting to figure stuff out. And then, gets hurt, and that kind of all falls apart on him. So let's hope Brady gets back. For those who don't know, the right humerus, that's this bone up here in your upper arm. It's the big one up there. So that's not a that's I don't even know how you
I was gonna say, I wonder how he did it.
I'm not sure. Like that seems like one of those things where it's like he's running in to knock down a door or something, and that's more like a separated shoulder or something. But and it did say it's a small fracture, so hopefully it's something that he gets recovered from. He's back out there, and this doesn't impact training camp in the start of next year. But now we're kind of on watch because this is two fairly major injuries, in a short period of time. Different injuries, but just something we're gonna have to keep an eye on.
Well, and contractually, he has one more year on his rookie deal. What is it? What is this for his future? Like, is this kind of a make or break season for him now? No pun intended there, make or break.
Sure.
But where do you think things are at as far as his future goes and what his next contract could look like?
Yeah, it's one of those things. So when I wrote their offseason preview for Spot Track, I was like, he's extension eligible, but at this point, it'd probably have to be so team friendly that if I was him, I'd be like, I'm good. Like I can play it out, let it run a restricted free agency, right? That's the challenge for these guys. Every draft class has a handful of the guys who are no brainer, like max extensions, right? Like you give it to them and you move on, you don't even think about it.
Right.
And then there's a handful of guys who it's like, yeah, they're not max guys, but they're still, $20 million players. Like one of my favorite examples is like Keldon Johnson of the Spurs with that one, right? Like that's okay. That's the deal that makes sense. And then you get into, the guys who are more like Poku, where it's like, man, I can't give you even 20, but taking 10, that seems too light, right? Then that seems like, because what if he does have a breakout season? Then he's like, man, now I'm going to be underpaid for the next 4 years or whatever. So yeah, I think it's probably, for him, it'd have to be so team friendly that just play it out and see. And then, we kind of do this dance again next summer when he's a restricted free agent anyway.
Yeah, agreed. That's probably where we ultimately end up with him, and hopefully heals up and can get ready for next season and be good to go. Because he's so intriguing with that size, and his ability to
do like that. Yeah. There's some fun stuff. Those with all those guards and wings, man. Gosh, I love that team. Like they are so fun. Like it's like just so many, just kind of almost unlimited possibility of what they could become.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I really can't wait.
The Thunder, 100%, one of the teams that I'm keeping a close eye on here this offseason, because they could do any number of super interesting things for this roster and be like a legit playoff team next season, no question. And I'm really curious to see what they do this summer here. But Keith, I think that's about everything here for Friday. Again, not quite as fun of a Friday as our normal live show, but we'll be back to that next week. But thank you everybody for hanging in there with us as I'm traveling here. Make sure that you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show. Don't forget to turn on those notifications as well. And of course, go follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody, have a great weekend and stay safe.